What's up, friends? Welcome into Rock Chalk Sports from Kansas Nation on Sports Radio 810 WHB. If you're listening on Sports Radio 810 WHB, my name is Daniel Courtwright. I'll be taking you all the way up to Kansas pregame, the Crimson and Blue show with Sean Kellerman and David Lawrence. They're taking on Towson tonight at 8 p.m. That's what we're going to be starting off this show with. Appreciate everybody watching on KansasNation.com and listening over on ESPN Kansas City, and all of our new listeners on Sports Radio 810 WHB. For anybody who doesn't know, like I said, my name is Daniel Courtwright. I started here at Kansas Nation about 3 months ago. Chad Boger made this reel, and all of our great co-workers over at Sports Radio 810 did an excellent job at putting this whole thing together. But we are a new company out in Lawrence called Kansas Nation. It was created for Jayhawk fans by Jayhawk fans. If you haven't followed us on Kansas Nation yet on any of our social platforms, do it right now, please. We are on Facebook at Kansas Nation, Twitter or X at The Kansas Nation, also on Instagram and TikTok at The Kansas Nation. All of our shows go out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you find your podcasts, we will be there talking all things Jayhawks all the time. I really appreciate this opportunity that was presented to us, and I grew up a Jayhawk fan, and now I get to talk about it for a living, which is a really, really cool thing. So, please give us a follow on all of our social media, as well as subscribe, like, and subscribe on YouTube as well. You can find all of our shows there. We also have a number of different shows that are going on our platform on Kansas Nation, featuring Brian Haney, the voice of the Jayhawks. He has his own show called Haney and the Hawks, where he brings on Jayhawk legends, and they kind of go through their entire careers as a Jayhawk. It's a really fun show. The latest episode had Tyrell Reed on it, so check that out on our YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, Tyshawn Taylor, the Timeout podcast with Tyshawn Taylor. He does his show with us. Brandon McAnderson and Chris Harris Jr., they do their Legends of Kansas podcast, where they break down all things KU football. Starting off in the new year, we're going to have a podcast that's going to be a lot of fun to listen to. It's going to be Greg Gurley and Mick Schaefer. Greg Gurley, obviously the color analyst for Kansas basketball, also former player, played on a Final Four team back in the 90s. And Mick Schaefer, he is the sports director over at NBC in Kansas City. We also have the Jayhawker podcast with Nate Bukaty. So a lot of great content on our platforms. Kansas Nation, you can check it all out at kansasnation.com. We have articles that are written up by Sean and I. We have press releases from the University of Kansas. All of our episodes are going to be on there. And I am live as well as Sean Kellerman. We are live every weekday from 4 to 6 on KansasNation.com. So be sure to check that out. Like I said, we're also on ESPN Kansas City, the sister station of Sports Radio 810 WHB. That's 1510 AM and 94.5 FM ESPN Kansas City. But very happy to be on Sports Radio 810 today. So like I said, be sure to follow us, like, and subscribe, everything, because we're going to bring you all Jayhawks all the time here on Kansas Nation. Speaking of the Jayhawks, that's what we're talking today. They're taking on Towson at 8 o'clock. Should be a big one. Towson has a lot of really good pieces. I'll kind of break that down here in this opening segment here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Later on in the show, you can listen to this later. I will be doing more of a Towson preview. Going to have Nick Springer on from KCSN, as well as the Chiefs Radio Network. Going to be talking a little bit of KU transfer portal as well. Coming up this football season, some more guys have entered into the transfer portal, so going to be breaking that down as well. Also going to hear from Kansas head women's basketball coach Brandon Schneider. He was made available to the media. They're taking on Haskell, the city showdown. It's going to be going on Wednesday. That's a really exciting, really exciting matchup between the two Lawrence colleges, and then some more KU Towson preview. Going to give some keys to the game as well. I'll give some keys to the game in this segment too. Let's go ahead and get it started with KU versus Towson. Towson right now, they are 6-4. Had a relatively tough schedule in terms of some of the, Power 5 teams that they have played. They did wind up playing Houston in the second game of the season on November 8th. They lost that one 65-48, probably a little bit closer to comfort that Houston would have liked. I'm sure they would have liked to extend that lead. Still almost a 20-point victory, but a 17-point victory still relatively good for Towson to kind of hang with Houston. Now, granted, it was early in the season, so a lot of the other guys were kind of getting their feet together. Also lost to James Madison 81-75. UC San Diego, who we are now seeing they're emerging as one of these fun mid-major college basketball powerhouse kind of teams. And then they lost to UCF just recently. This is going to be their second Big 12 opponent, Kansas, who they're playing right back-to-back, right? They lost at UCF in Orlando 86-61. So they're 6-4 right now. I will go ahead. I'll give you more of a Towson breakdown, but I want to talk about the Hawks as Darren Peterson did go out of the game against NC State with what Bill Self has talked about is a quad injury. So it is not a hamstring injury. He also kind of doubled down and said he's not heard the word hamstring once from the medical staff regarding Darren Peterson. So that's could be good news, right? The hamstring issue is over with, but now there's a quad issue that he's been dealing with. So look, get him some mustard packets or a salt lick or something to help with these crampings or fill him full of Gatorade, whatever you must do. Now, granted, these things happen, right? We've seen it with a number of players in the past, like Paulo Banchero, Cooper Flagg, Malik Newman. A ton of different players have dealt with cramping, but unfortunately, it is an issue, and Bill Self went on Hawk Talk yesterday and said that he is day-to-day. He did wind up practicing today, and here's everything that Coach Self had to say about Darren Peterson and the injury that he sustained. He doesn't seem too necessarily concerned about it, just kind of needs to get it figured out.
I have no idea. I don't know. We didn't practice yesterday. I just saw him in the hallway, and he's going to lift right now with the guys, and so we'll practice later, but obviously he had some not hamstring based on what I was told, but some quad cramping there, which to me, you guys saw the game, was evident that he wasn't moving at the pace that he's got to move at, the way people are going to guard him and that stuff. So it was obviously bothering.
So I get it. It is a little frustrating, right, with Darren Peterson, and sort of this injury saga that we are seeing. But at the same time, I've been consistent about this all year in the fact that you just need to get him 100% healthy for Big 12 play, right? This is Towson, and I'm not typically the kind of guy to, look over opponents. But if you're going to get somebody healthy, it might as well be this stretch of games that we're seeing right now, because Kansas has Towson today, and then they have 6 days until they play Davidson. So not exactly, Houston or Duke or UConn or any of these kinds of teams. It's Towson. So how much do you want to risk Darren Peterson, right? But also, we are fully aware that Darren Peterson is a ball player. He's not in this for the money. He's not in this for the fame. All he wants to do is play basketball, and that is his main goal. He wants to go out there. He wants to ball with his boys. And look, I get it, right? So it's frustrating for Bill Self. It's frustrating for Darren Peterson, but you need to get him healthy. And Coach Self even said it in that press conference. He said, look, you could just tell that he just wasn't there, right? You could tell he was starting to move a little slow. He was starting to, kind of pull up on some things, wasn't making the best moves. And I think that it was apparent because we've seen Darren Peterson play. It's a small sample size, but we understand the way that this kid can play, right? When he puts the ball down, he has the utmost confidence. He can beat anybody. He can shoot over anybody. He has some of the best court vision I've seen in a long time out of any of the Kansas guards that we've had in a long time. And you could just kind of tell that things were not firing on all cylinders, I think, with Darren Peterson. So I thought it was good that they managed to take him out. And, in the NC State game, you had Melvin Council, who really was exceptional. That's one of the best performances I've seen out of a Jayhawk in 5 maybe even 10 years, right? Just the way that he performed. I guess Frank Mason's probably in there too. There's a number of them, but still, I mean, probably a top 10 performance out of any Jayhawk that I've seen in the last 10 years. It's certainly top 5 in terms of scoring by a Jayhawk in the Bill Self era. And he hit the second most threes in school history with 9. He went 9 of 15 from the 3-point line. And Melvin Council just did an excellent job. Let's hear everything. Bill Self actually had a comment on Melvin Council yesterday when he was asked at the media. Let's hear that now.
Well, they dared him to shoot. Obviously they dared him to shoot, and they went under everything. And the best thing that he did was he shot it. If he goes 3 for 8 from 3, uncontested, well, technically that means 5 shots or a long shot, long rebounds, a better percentage, even though we haven't done it like we're capable of offensive rebounding long 3 misses, and there is probably short 2 misses. Then you have a situation, 3 for 8 is what, 37%? And 37% effective field goal percentage is what, 55%, which is, something like that would rank out 54%, something like that would rank out very high. So even 3 for 8 is not bad or end of the world. So I thought the best thing that he did was take them, and then after he made a couple, he started feeling it. But those shots that he made in the second half, those weren't hesitant shots. Those were shots out of necessity that he shot without thinking. And it just goes to show you he can become a pretty good shooter if he plays without thinking about it. And he certainly was reactive the other day.
I mean, you heard Coach Self say it right there, right? NC State was just daring him to shoot. And look, if I'm Will Wade and I see that Kansas's 2-man is coming in with 6 threes on the year, shooting 18% from the 3-point line, I'm going to do that too. So, and I liked what Bill Self said about how he did exactly what he was supposed to do. If they're daring you to shoot, you shoot it, right? Because he likes Kansas's matchups on those long rebounds, because if you have a long miss, then there's a long rebound. You have guys like Bryson and Flory down there who can battle for those. You have guys like Trey White who can crash the boards from the outside, who can get those rebounds as well. So I liked the fact that he said basically he did exactly what he wanted him to do. He would have been fine with him going 3 for 8. Which I mean, yeah, that's probably fair, and that would have been a substantially better number than what he has been shooting over the course of this year. It would have been 3 for 8, but going 9 for 15, it just worked out better, right? And I think with the way that the Kansas offense was kind of firing, I think that Melvin Council had to be that guy. If Melvin Council doesn't hit 9 threes, KU gets blown out of this game because nobody else in the offense was really able to get anything going. We saw Flory with 8, right? But Bryson Tiller, that was an issue. He only had 2 points, 4 rebounds in this game. He needs to step it up, right? Trey White had 12 in this game. Wasn't able to get to the free throw line as much. Now, granted, I thought that the referees were a little bit laissez-faire in terms of kind of the ways that they called the game. They kind of let it go, and I wasn't a big fan of it. Trey White's so good at getting to the free throw line and making those free throws. He's so good in traffic. He's so good at drawing that contact and being able to get to the free throw line, and wasn't able to do that as much. I believe he went 4 for 4 from the free throw line. But Melvin Council Jr., legacy game, 36 points, 9 for 15 from the 3-point line. And look, I've said it before probably 5 times, and I'll say it again. This is going to be the game that when somebody in a room that you're with says the words Melvin Council Jr., you're going to say, oh, man, remember that NC State game, because that was absolutely incredible. And hopefully that momentum can, move over to this Towson game, right? Maybe, he's knocked the rust off enough to be able to become one of those deep ball threats, because that's not the way that he really plays the game, right? He even talked about it. I believe he was on Jeff Goodman, Field of 68, talking about how his game high was probably 3 threes in a game even going back to high school, right? That's not the way that he plays the game. He likes to drive. He likes to have that high motor and drive into those gaps and try to get to the basket or kick it out or whatever it may be, right? He's not really a spot-up shooter. That's not the way that he goes. He's more of a movement guy. And look, when they're letting you wide open out there, why not? Why not? Shoot those threes. And look, he made 9 of them, so it certainly worked out for him. But the offense was a little bit stale at times for Kansas as opposed to Melvin Council Jr. And Bill Self actually addressed that in his press conference, talked about kind of some of the issues that the offense has.
We don't have a team full of one-on-one guys. When Darren's out there, he can hold it and can stick and he can get his own. Everybody else has got to be a ball mover, a shooter, or a passer immediately, or screener. You can't be a stander, and we've got way too much of that going on, and we got to get better at that. And there's a lot of teams out there that got to get better at something, but that's the thing that stands out to me more than anything else.
And kind of with everything that Bill Self said in that presser in regards to what the offense needs to do, I mean, he's absolutely right. And I think that even if you don't know anything about basketball, you probably watched that game and said, what's the deal? Like, what are these guys doing? Like, why are a lot of them just standing around and sticking? And you know, he had mentioned that he said Darren Peterson, he's the kind of guy who can go ISO on some guys and handle that. But the other guys, not so much, right? You need to have guys who can move the ball around. You need to have guys who can move off ball, you know, trying to get open. You need the guys to be shooters. You need guys to be rebounders. You need guys to have that ball movement, because with ball movement comes easy shots, right? You're getting the defense on their heels. You're moving the ball around quite a bit, and I just don't think we saw that a whole heck of a lot. And the reason that Melvin Council Jr. was getting so many open shots is because they were daring him to, right? If Melvin Council Jr. comes into this game shooting 28, 29, 30% from the three-pointer, he doesn't get those looks. And Kansas does not win that game. The main reason that Kansas won that game is because of sort of a defensive blunder and also a little bit of luck, right? Of course, because we didn't know that Melvin Council was capable of that. I don't even know if Melvin Council knew that he was capable of hitting 9 threes in this game. But they were just allowing him to be open, and he just was feeling hot that day. So that is the main reason that Kansas won that game. Kansas would have lost that game if Melvin Council was shooting any higher than 18% from the three-point line, because they wouldn't have been daring him to. They wouldn't have given him that open space to make those threes and keep Kansas in this game in a hostile road environment out in Raleigh. So like I said, hopefully this can move forward into this Towson game, the Davidson game, and moving forward into conference play, right? Because that's going to be the biggest thing for us is conference play. I will go ahead and break down this Towson program right now, because that's the game that's going on tonight as we're about ready to kick it to Crimson and Blue Show coverage with David Lawrence and Sean Kellerman right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The Towson Tigers, they are like I said, they're 6-4 right now. I believe that they were supposed to win the CAA beforehand, and in the CAA rankings they're not really shaking out, because I believe UNC Wilmington is 10-1 right now. Towson is 6-4, but when it gets into conference play, it's going to be a little bit different of a story. Towson is a really good program, right? And the head of the snake is Tyler Tejada. He's 6'9", averages 18.8 points per game. The kid shoots a lot of threes, and he's a big guard. The kid, he reminds me a little bit of Yaxel Lindeberg, kind of like an off-brand version of Yaxel Lindeberg, right? The kid is good with the ball on the ground. He's good at shooting the ball. He's good with handles. And he's 6'9". It's unbelievable to me. He was a CAA Player of the Year last year as a sophomore, first sophomore to do that since some player from George Mason back in 1999. So it's impressive to see what this kid is able to do. And like I said, he's really good at shooting the three, and really great on defense as well. So I'm anxious to see kind of what that matchup is going to be like. I would imagine Trey White is going to be on Tyler Tejada. Now, is Trey White our best defender? I would say probably not as of right now, but in terms of who we have to match up with him, I would say that's probably your best bet. right? There is a size mismatch. I think Trey White has the quickness and the ability to be able to put a hand in his face. And look, these guys put up a lot of threes, and I'll kind of go through this even more so. The guys put up a lot of threes. Kansas, as of right now, they rank 5th in the nation in three-point percentage on defense, on the defensive side of the ball. They're allowing 25% from the three-point line. And NC State, they were a 40% three-point shooting team coming into this game. Kansas held them to under 30 once again. So no team has shot over 30% from the three-point line against Kansas all year. So that's going to be big, right? And I think Trey White will be able to kind of slow him down, not allow him to get in those passing lanes and kind of limit his offensive capabilities. But the size mismatch makes me a little bit nervous. Speaking of three-point shooters, Dylan Williamson, he's their second guy, 15.6 points per game. The kid's shooting 34.2% from three, and he puts up a lot of threes. Last year, he made the most threes out of anybody on Towson's program. Actually, he made 88 threes, third highest total by any Towson player in a single season. So he's one of the best shooters in Towson college history, right? He shot 43.1% from behind the arc last year, highest by any player in a single season by Towson. He's shooting in the 30s right now, but he's capable of making more, so you got to be able to shut him down. Got to think Melvin Council is going to be the guy who's going to be on him. Depends on if Darren Peterson's going to be able to play tonight. So we'll certainly see. They also have some other guys who are pretty good in one down low. Jack Doumbia Jr., who averages 12.1 points per game, 24.5 minutes per game. The kid's not a shooter. He's 6'6", but he plays that forward position. So there's going to be a giant mismatch with the guys down low. Bryson Tiller, that's going to be his guy. He's going to be able to shut him down, which is something I'm going to love to see. I'm going to be anxious to see Bryson Tiller be able to take over that game against Jack Doumbia, and especially on the offensive side of the ball. He'll shut him down on the defensive side of the ball, and then on the offensive side of the ball, I want to see him take advantage of that mismatch. So KU taking on Towson tonight at 8 o'clock. Be sure to listen to all of the coverage here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Going to be a big one. Obviously, you think about Towson, you go, yeah, it's kind of a cakewalk game. They've got good players, right? Tyler Tejada, CAA Player of the Year last year. Dylan Williamson, one of the best three-point shooters in Towson history. So they have good pieces around it, and Kansas needs to be able to understand that and how this team works. And I think Kansas's identity on the defensive side of the ball has been gritty, tough, don't allow threes, and has really been able to tamper down a lot of offensive productivity from a lot of these other high-octane offenses that we've seen. This is a high-octane offense that we're seeing out of Towson right now. So obviously you're in the fog. You feel pretty good about it, right? But at the same time, you can't look over these guys. They also have another guy down low. His name is Caleb Mbea, not Paul Mbea, Caleb Mbea. He's 6'9", 235 pounds from the Congo. He averages 5.9 rebounds per game, only averages about 18 minutes per game. So they do a lot of rotational work down low. So it's going to be interesting to see how Flory Bidunga is going to be able to handle that, because you look at Flory Bidunga, I'm looking at him playing 32 to 35 minutes a game. Now, granted, if it's a blowout, probably not, right? But they have a lot of fresh legs that are going to be down low. Yes, there's a size mismatch. Yes, Flory Bidunga is such a fantastic rim protector down low, and he dunks on everybody that he sees, including, potential lottery picks like Cam Boozer and a ton of different guys like that. So it'll just be interesting to see kind of the freshness of the legs of a guy like Flory Bidunga taking on a lot of rotational pieces down low with Towson. I don't think Kansas is going to have any issues here. Hopefully Darren Peterson is going to be able to play. As of right now, we do not have any word on if Darren Peterson will be good to go. Bill Self, as I said that he is right now, day-to-day. He did practice yesterday, so shoot around. We'll probably see if Darren Peterson will be good to go. But Towson, Kansas, going on tonight at 8 o'clock. You can hear coverage of it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB starting at 6:30 with the Crimson and Blue Show with David Lawrence and Sean Kellerman. For all of our listeners on Sports Radio 810 WHB, I've been Daniel Courtwright from Rock Chalk Sports on Kansas Nation. Be sure to like and subscribe everywhere you find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Check out all of our shows, Haney and the Hawks, Legends of Kansas, all of that stuff, as well as check out kansasnation.com for anything Kansas related. kansasnation.com. I want to thank all of the listeners on Sports Radio 810 WHB, and now we'll kick it over to David Lawrence and Sean Kellerman. If you're listening on ESPN Kansas City or watching on kansasnation.com, I'll take you through for the rest of our 2 hours on kansasnation.com. Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports here on kansasnation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Daniel Courtwright and Sean Kellerman. You've shrunk and you spiked your hair up.
I'm glad to be living in the penthouse now. You know, I was slumming it up on the couch for a long time, and I don't know how or why, but somehow I got promoted to the big house.
Man,
so I'm excited to be here at the main desk.
Look at you. By the way, this is not Sean Kellerman. This is
it's not.
Nick Springer. From KC Sports Network, Pay Heat Podcast, also a Chiefs Radio Network as well. So going to do a lot of Chiefs talk with Nick. I got into a little bit of Chiefs talk yesterday, but we're going to expand more kind of on some offseason stuff, kind of where the season sits right now, if Nick even thinks we should win another game this year. But first things first, you do think so?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm in tank mode, baby. I'm in. We'll get into it. But first, obviously, you have the Payee podcast with our good friend Kevin Flaherty, who we had on yesterday.
Friend of the show,
yeah. Well, you want to talk about KU? I want to talk about KU Towson, but first, where were you for the Melvin Council Jr. legacy game? 9 threes, 9 for 15, 36 points, fifth highest scoring performance by any Jayhawk in the Bill Self era, second most threes in a game by any Jayhawk of all time. Talk about that, and then talk about what else you saw, because, and Bill Self agrees with this, the offense felt kind of flat other than Melvin Council Jr. So talk about this most previous NC State game and kind of your general takeaways from it.
Yeah, I mean, Melvin obviously was phenomenal, and KU needed him, quite frankly. They would have lost that game by double digits without him. So they had to have what he was doing out there. Yeah, definitely the greatest performance the greatest individual performance I think I've seen from a Jayhawk since probably Elijah Johnson in 2013 against Iowa State.
Yeah. I was comparing the two, saying that anytime anybody brings up Elijah Johnson, you got to bring up the Iowa State game. It's like anytime 10 years from now you bring up Melvin Council, they're going to bring this game up.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I'll say about Melvin Council is, like, how can you not love him, right? I mean, he kind of embodies, I think, everything that KU fans want from a player on their team. He's somebody that so obviously is passionate about playing the game, loves to play the game, obviously hit a three at one point in the game and was flashing up the Kansas on the jersey, so clearly he loves playing at Kansas too.
Yeah.
So he's sort of one of those rare players that you get in the modern transfer portal era of, like, a guy that clearly just loves to play the game and loves to play where he's at, which is right now with Kansas. And again, KU needed every point they got from him in this game because otherwise they would have lost. And, the Darren Peterson situation continues to unfold. And obviously, even despite the fact that he was clearly limited in the game and clearly was not fully comfortable, he gives you 17 points and 7 of 14 from the floor, which is pretty damn good. He ends up playing 31 minutes. Obviously, he just wasn't out there for the final stretch push of the game when Kansas probably could have used him. But yeah, Melvin was outstanding. Can't say enough about what he did. And NC State dared him to shoot, and he did, and he just ran with it. I mean, he just got hot and just kept shooting. So really impressive performance from him. Obviously not something I think that Kansas is going to be able to replicate on a regular basis. So
you don't think he hit 9 threes again?
Yeah, so like what you alluded to with what Bill Self was talking about, yeah, obviously the offense for Kansas needs to get going a little bit. And I thought that what Bill Self said was really interesting, and basically saying KU needs to play faster, but that doesn't mean shooting faster. That just means you need to be getting into your offense faster. You need to be moving without the ball faster. The ball needs to not stick, move around quicker, things like that. And so, I think I always kind of felt that there would be a little bit of a learning curve with getting Darren Peterson back into the lineup, because when early in the season, the first couple games Darren Peterson did play, I felt like there was a lot of games where, hey, get the ball to Darren Peterson, everybody just stand around and let him do whatever. Obviously, that's not great for Kansas offensively. They need to be able to do more with that. And then they didn't have him for a while, so then it felt like they sort of were figuring out how to play without him. Yeah. And now he's like kind of back, kind of not. So now you're kind of in this weird limbo of like, you want to have effective offense with him on the floor, obviously, and without him. Melvin Council took over, and Darian Williams for NC State tried to match him late in the game. Obviously, he couldn't hit the game-winning shot, but very impressive performance from Melvin Council. And Flory, I think, has during the previous stretch of games from November up until early December, he had been doing a really nice job of staying out of foul trouble. That wasn't the case against NC State. He had 2 fouls in 3 minutes, ends up sitting for a good majority of the first half, which kind of limited him, and then he wasn't very effective in the second half. But Bryson Tiller continues to be up and down. Obviously, he had a really hot start to the year, but he's been kind of down lately, only 2 points in this game against NC State. Truly, honestly, the other thing that I took away from the game is Kansas got 2 bench points.
Yeah.
And for all the talk about this team maybe having a little bit more depth, it hasn't come to fruition yet. And that means that guys like Marco Jackson who played 19 minutes and didn't score. Now, listen, I'm in a much better headspace as it relates to Marco Jackson than I was 5 weeks ago.
Sure.
I think he's clearly shown that he can be a guy that's going to be able to play for Kansas, but no points from him. Cole Rosario continues to not really do much. Jaden Dawson, hampered by injury, whatever it may be, his issues, he's not been able to be much of a scorer. So that's an area where I would look at, and a great opportunity now for Kansas turning the page to Towson and then Davidson on the 22nd of that's going to be your chance maybe to hopefully get some of those bench guys more minutes and get them going so that you can have that little bit of scoring punch off the bench once you get to conference play. So overall, I'm excited for Towson to see if Darren Peterson's going to play. We'll see. Obviously, we're sitting here a couple hours before the game, not really sure. So it's unclear what his status will be, I guess, at this point. But overall, if he does play, I want to see him hopefully look more comfortable. But then if he doesn't, again, that hopefully will give more opportunity for some of those other guys to maybe step up and provide a little bit of scoring for Kansas heading into conference play. Because the other thing that I talked about with Kevin on our podcast earlier this week is you have this time period right now where you are playing 2 games over 19 days. You have a game on the 16th today, obviously.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have a game on the 22nd with Davidson. Then your next game is not until the January 3rd when you start conference play. The moment you start conference play, you're playing minimum 2 games a week, 3 games a week some weeks, with the only gap of not having played that many games is going to be at the end of January when you play K-State, and then you'll have a week off before you play BYU.
Yeah.
The point being, as it relates to Darren Peterson, is that this is your last opportunity to get him long-term rest in terms of trying to get him ready for conference play. So, I just hope that it doesn't turn into a situation. And my main worry with Darren Peterson, and obviously, Bill Self made it clear that it wasn't a hamstring re-aggravation or anything in the game on Saturday, that he was dealing more with the cramps. The problem with cramps is, I don't think cramps just go away with rest.
Right.
So
yeah.
it's like my worry now is that this is just going to become sort of a game-to-game thing where, hey, some games he might be fine, other games he might be limited, and that's obviously very frustrating both internally for Kansas as they're trying to, make a run in conference play, and obviously from the fan perspective where you're frustrated that you have this star player who's not able to play due to cramps. So the one thing I will say, though, is I think it's obvious. It's been obvious now to me. I hope it's more obvious now for a lot of people that Darren Peterson wants to play. I mean,
yes.
The guy wants to play. He's a competitor. He wants to play. He wants to be out there. He's trying to fight through it. Hopefully people see that, recognize that now that I don't think at this point in time there's any real legs to this narrative of oh, well, does he want to play? No, he's fine. He wants to play. He wants to be out there. He's a very competitive kid. I've talked to his high school coach in the past about his competitiveness and what he wants to be. And so there's no doubt in my mind about that aspect of it. So obviously that means that it's equally frustrating for him as a player as it is for fans and people that want to see him play. So hopefully people kind of, get rid of that narrative and really focus on, hey, this is just a kid who wants to play. Obviously he's dealing with some issues with the cramping that he has, but you hope that it just doesn't turn into a thing where it's a game-to-game basis, right? You want to be able to hopefully get it cleaned up. But again, this is the last opportunity to do that. You have a long gap here over winter break where you're not going to have any games, 2 games in 19 days. But once you get conference play, that goes out the window. And the games are going to be fast and furious, and there's a couple stretches in there for Kansas where you could feasibly blink, and in the span of a week, you might lose 2 or 3 conference games, and that's concerning, obviously. So you got to be locked in for that, and hopefully that'll allow Kansas to propel forward. But one more thing I will say, I know I've been kind of rambling for a while here, but
No, you're
one final thing I will say is Kansas is set up right now to finish 10-3 in their non-conference slate. I think at the start of the season you would probably accept that, right? A competitive loss against Duke, a game against UConn that you maybe probably could have or should have won, right, at home, and then obviously the game against North Carolina. I think you would have taken that because my thought process heading into this, even prior to the Darren Peterson injury stuff, all the way back in September and early October, was this is going to be a team that, because of all the new faces and whatnot, it's probably going to take a little bit of time for them to really power up. And so to get through the non-conference slate with a 10-3 record, I think I would have taken that, right?
Yeah.
And again, you could argue maybe even should be 11-2 by beating UConn, but if you get to 10-3 in the non-conference slate, I think that's good enough, because then you look at your conference schedule and say, all right, yeah, let's go win 12, 13, 14 games in the conference, and then you're probably in good shape.
Yeah, 100%. And you look at Kansas's 3 losses this year. It's to Duke, UNC, and UConn. Those are 3 blue bloods. Now, granted, you look at it and you go, well, KU's also a blue blood. They should win some of those games.
Those are the games that you expect to win if you're Kansas.
Right.
You want to beat the other blue bloods.
Exactly.
So I get it.
Especially, if you're in Allen Fieldhouse. Now, granted, only one of them was, but you still feel confident about beating them on a neutral court. Nick Springer, KCSN, joins us also with the Chiefs Radio Network. Nick, wanted to pivot over to the Chiefs. You are our Chiefs insider.
I'm not an insider.
Resident Chiefs insider.
That's not me.
You have all the scoops. You hang out with Patrick Mahomes all the time, and he said off air, BFFs. He said best friends.
Yeah, that's definitely not
they have
me.
matching. Those bracelets that Patrick Mahomes wears. They wear matching ones. They did it at a sleepover, I think, right?
This is you're embarrassing yourself.
Anyway, I want to talk a little Chiefs with you. Obviously, I was at the game on Sunday and I watched in person Patrick Mahomes tear his ACL. I'm never going to a Chiefs game again because of that.
I think you can go back. Yeah.
Well, that was one of the 2 Chiefs games I've ever been to in my life. So I've watched 2 historical events happen. I watched Patrick Mahomes tear his ACL and I watched Josh Gordon score a touchdown, which is, I know, isn't that weird?
What game was that?
Raiders.
Oh.
2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe something like that. I think it was 3 years ago.
I went to a Chiefs Browns game in 2013, and I think Josh Gordon was on the Browns at that point.
Ah, nice. Well, Josh Gordon was on the Chiefs.
It was
so it might have been 4 years ago.
Right, yeah.
Might have been 4 years ago, somewhere along those lines. But anyway,
the quarterback for the Browns in that game was Jason Campbell, I think.
Oh, what a poll!
It was Jason Campbell versus Alex
You could have given me
Smith.
100 guesses. I wouldn't have guessed.
Pretty
that.
sure it was Jason Campbell. 2013, 2014.
But regarding the Chiefs are out of the playoffs, and Patrick Mahomes has a torn ACL and an LCL. Now, he did undergo surgery. The surgery was successful, but the LCL could potentially, extend the recovery time a little bit. Just, I know that as Chiefs fans, we've been pampered over the last 8 years, right? With never missing an AFC Championship game and 3 Super Bowls, going to 5 Super Bowls. This is the first time that we've really felt this sinking feeling of, oh, it's over, since 2013, back when we had the first pick and we picked up Eric Fisher, number 1 overall. Your general thoughts in terms of before the injury. What was the biggest issue? Because I have my kind of takeaways in terms of, the play calling was a little predictable. The defensive scheme was getting predictable as well. What are your thoughts in terms of what went wrong this year?
I think this year was a little bit of a Murphy's Law in that everything that could go wrong just did go wrong for the Chiefs. Obviously, even from the second play of the season when Xavier Worthy gets KO'd by Travis Kelce, and that kind of derails his year, or at least his start to the year. The offensive line dealing with a ton of injuries, and this is just the attrition of the NFL. I think when you have a run like the Chiefs had, you have to obviously be one of the best teams. But on top of that, you have to have some luck. You have to have some things go your way. In 2024, the Chiefs had a lot of luck. They had a lot of things go their way, and they've had historically pretty good injury luck overall, really over the course of this historic run that they've had. Yeah. And all of that just ran out this year. All of that just ran out, and that's not to say that there's not other issues like you highlighted. This is an Andy Reid issue as much as in anything else. There's definitely more to it than that. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs went, I think, 11-0 and 11-1 in 1-score games in 2024, and this year they're 1-7, I think, in 1-score games. And so that's you could just point to that, But I will say that is not an excuse for how this season went, right? There's obviously much more bigger issues than that, as you mentioned with Andy Reid, and this will be an offseason where Andy Reid's gonna have to look in the mirror, and I think even Brett Veach too. I'm gonna say this, and I'll try to explain what I mean by it is. It turns out, Dan, Mahomes, Kelsey, and Chris Jones and the power of friendship only goes so far. That went as far as 3 Super Bowls, 8 straight AFC Championship games.
That's pretty damn far.
But I know, so it's really good. So it's really, really good. But it's now run out. And what I mean by that is the Chiefs over the past half decade basically have drafted at various times for fit, have not necessarily drafted talent, not necessarily drafted the best player. You think about like the FAU pick, obviously, and what that was because the Chiefs were hosting the NFL draft in Kansas City, and maybe they may not have done that if that draft was literally anywhere else. You think about the Sky Moore pick, the Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick, like they were drafting for traits, they were drafting for character probably a little bit more than maybe necessarily just talent when you look at how things ended up unfolding. And so because of that, you're relying on your superstars to really carry this team forward. And Travis Kelce obviously is not what he was 3 years ago, and he wasn't what he was 3 years ago, what he was 5 years ago.
Right.
So, he and Chris Jones obviously is now past 30, right? So your superstars that you have relied on are aging and not good enough now, and you haven't done a good enough job of reloading with young talent that can be budding into superstars. Because, I mean, basically Trent McDuffie is the only guy that the Chiefs have drafted that you could point to and say this guy has the potential to be, a top 5 player at his position. And even obviously Trent McDuffie's had his own issues this season, and he's been dealing with injuries too. So that's part of it. So I think, they need to look themselves in the mirror about how they were attacking drafting, right? And what they need to look for. Because, dude, coming into this season, Chiefs fans, myself included, were salivating at the prospect of, man, Rashee Rice, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, like that's
good. That's a good core.
People were talking about Rashee Rice as a top 10 receiver in the league, and we've seen how that's gone. So, yeah, my biggest fear, I think, is that internally the Chiefs look at this season and say, hey, you know what? We were just unlucky. We're going to run it back in 2026. Yes, you were unlucky. That's fair. Like that's accurate. But you were also bad. You also sucked in various moments that you historically have not sucked in. So
right.
you need to look at yourself and really, really do some introspective, reflection. And I think it probably starts with Andy Reid, obviously, and the Chiefs offense, because there's been a number of games this season where the Chiefs offense has had several opportunities to either put a game away or take the lead in a game, and they haven't done it. The Chargers game was a great example. The Texans game was – the Chiefs had, I think, 3 possessions when the game was tied at 10 against the Texans and had a chance to, take the lead in the fourth quarter. Didn't do anything, okay?
Right.
So they obviously have some real issues. Now, as it relates to Patrick Mahomes, I say this a lot on my podcast, and I'm going to say it here again. I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be a doctor. I just play one on the radio.
Sure.
Okay?
You're really good at playing a doctor.
I'm not going to sit here and try to predict when Mahomes is going to come back. When is he going to play the first game of the season? Is it going to take him long? I don't even – I'm not even in the right mental headspace to even think about that. I just don't – I'm not going to predict it. I don't know. Whatever. It's one day after a surgery, right? I'm not interested in doing that, having that discussion. But as it pertains to the Chiefs offseason, they can still do things despite the fact of unclear whether or not Mahomes is going to play week 1 or whatever it may be. So they need to be looking at that. And moving forward, again, my biggest worry is that the Chiefs will look at this season and Andy Reid will look at the season and say, hey, the process was there. We were just unlucky, and we'll try to run it back. No, there definitely needs to be some sort of changes to what the Chiefs are doing, because the idea of the Chiefs missing the playoffs outright, or in this particular case, being out of the playoffs with basically 4 games to go because they had such a low percentage chance even going into that Chargers game with a healthy Mahomes.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, Mahomes got hurt, but you were still going to miss the playoffs if Mahomes had torn his ACL, whatever. You were still on track to miss the playoffs.
Yeah. It's very
that
true.
idea was so unfathomable to me, to probably every other Chiefs fan in Kansas City and around the country, around the world, whatever. The idea of, hey, you have essentially a full season of healthy Patrick Mahomes and you're going to miss the playoffs, that's unbelievable. So I understand why a lot of people would say all right, we need to hit the nuclear option then and just say, screw it, whatever. Make major changes, whatever. That's probably a bit too extreme. I think the Chiefs deserve a little bit of grace for the fact that they've gone on this run. But yes, there needs to be changes, and hopefully there needs to be people, Veach specifically and Andy Reid specifically looking at this and saying, okay, what do we need to reassess? What do we need to do to solve the issues that we face this season? Is it what do we need to do personnel-wise? What do we need to do play calling-wise? What did we need to do? All of the above needs to be examined this offseason. And I'll just say this. The Chiefs haven't had that opportunity really to do that because over the past 7 years, they've basically played an entire extra season's worth of football with the number of playoff games that they've played.
That's very true.
So honestly, I think for some Chiefs fans, you may look at this and say this might be a good thing because now you're going to have an entire offseason to truly sort of run a self-diagnostics on what you are doing, what your organization is doing. And maybe that'll lead to, some different changes for 2026, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, no, it absolutely makes sense. That was my weirdly optimistic take was kind of okay, well, it kind of gives us a little bit of room to breathe and it takes a little bit of the pressure off and it gives us a chance to kind of get an early start in terms of what we're going to do. And Nick, I'm curious
my
to know
take is Cancun on 3.
Yeah,
right.
Cancun on 3.
Cancun on 3. I'll see you in Mexico on the second week of January.
Well, so it brings up a good point because as of right now, Kansas City sits at the number 11 pick. So we're not in the top 10 yet.
Yeah, you're going
to – so in your mind, I understand that you want to watch the Chiefs win football games, but at this point, it's kind of pointless, and you're only hurting yourself in the long run by not getting as good of a draft pick. Do you agree with that sentiment in terms of it might be a better – thing to do to just kind of lose out and get a really good draft pick? Also, I'm curious to know if there's anybody on your trading block, who is it? Because the Chiefs are going to be in cap hell. Now they can restructure Mahomes' contract. They can restructure Creed Humphrey's contract and, trade away some different players. But if you were to get rid of one player to try to free up some space and try to get another player in need wherever the Chiefs need it, because they need it in quite a few different areas, where is that? And do you think the Chiefs are essentially should be thinking maybe we're in tank mode?
I think the most obvious trade candidate for the Chiefs would probably be Trent McDuffie.
Sure.
That would, to me, would be probably the player that you would.
He's worth probably a first rounder, late first rounder probably, maybe second.
Well, yeah, I don't know. That's where you get into that conversation because, Sauce Gardner goes for a first, is Trent McDuffie that? I don't know. Is he's not your prototypical long, lengthy shutdown outside corner. So I don't know what the value would be, but I think he's probably your most obvious trade candidate if you're looking at that. I mean, the thing with Chris Jones is you're about to get to the bulk of his contract, so I don't think the Chiefs would entertain trading Chris Jones, but beyond that, it would. I don't know if there's any teams that would be willing to take on the type of salary that he has. So probably wouldn't trade him. You look at the offense, I don't know. But I will just say this, and I'm going to be in the extreme minority here, and I'm okay with that. And, the draft nerds, the chronically online Chiefs fans who, all that stuff, they're going to get mad. I don't care where the Chiefs pick. I don't.
Okay.
I don't care.
Sure.
I don't think that picking 11th versus picking 13th or 14th is that significant of a deal.
Yeah, but what if they can get up to 6?
I don't think they can. I don't know. I'd have to look at the standings.
Yeah,
but I have no idea.
It'd probably be close. But yeah,
I don't care. I don't want to think about that. I don't care. I want to see the Chiefs over these last 3 games show a little fight a little bit, and also setting us. I mean, you're playing the Raiders and Titans. You're probably going to win both those games. I mean, I would hope.
Yeah.
And then I don't care what the circumstances are. I don't care if the Chiefs are 0-15, 0-16. I don't care what the circumstances are. I do not want to lose to the Denver Broncos in any scenario, in any case.
Sure.
And I can tell you for damn sure I don't want to lose to those clowns on Christmas night, okay?
Right.
I don't want to do that.
It'll ruin my
Christmas. I
Christmas,
don't want to see that. I don't want that to happen.
Raiders
I don't care
ruined
what
our
anybody
Christmas,
says. I don't
3 years
care
ago?
if the number 1 draft pick is on the line. I don't want to lose to the Broncos. It doesn't matter, okay? Right. And again, draft nerds, whatever. You can come at me. I don't care. I understand I'm in the minority on this position, but that is where I'm at. I don't care about the draft. I don't care about what draft pick the Chiefs have. I think it's irrelevant to me right now. It's irrelevant to me right now. I would just like to see the Chiefs finish out the season, hopefully beat the Broncos. I don't really care about the other results, but get some young guys. That's where I'm at. I mean, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm not interested in
that's fair.
The Chiefs having a pick 3 picks ahead of, because
there'll be guys.
You can look at other first round. You can look at the first round of drafts, and it doesn't especially when you're in the middle. I don't think it really matters what pick you specifically have. It really just matters what your evaluations are, who you're going to get. So I'm sorry, I just don't care.
Real quick before we let you go, because I know we got to let you go. The most important position for the Chiefs to pick up round 1 on draft night. Because there's a lot, right? You can look at tight end, because it's probably going to be Travis Kelce's last year. No, nothing confirmed. But also, maybe a running back if Jeremiah Love is available at 11. Or
I know I just got done ranting about how I don't care about the draft, but I'll give you 3 players that I hope the Chiefs could potentially get. Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon, Jeremiah Love from Notre Dame, and Carnell Tate from Ohio State. Okay. Any one of those 3, I think, would be an excellent pick for the Chiefs if they're available when the Chiefs come up. Any of those 3, I think, would be very good. I would be very pleased with any of those 3 picks.
Jeremiah Love is fun to watch. And then, like you said, the tight end from Miami, right?
Oregon. Kenyon Sadiq.
Oregon. Kid's a dog. So,
yes.
No, I agree with you. Nick Springer, KCSN, and the Chiefs Radio Network. Nick, what you got coming up? Give us a plug in terms of anything special you got going on over at KCSN?
Yeah, obviously myself and Kevin Flaherty, who's been on the show as well. We do the show together on KCSN. It's the paid podcast, so you can subscribe to us. Once conference play gets kicked off for KU basketball, we're going to be doing a lot of YouTube live shows after games.
Nice.
So, you watch a game, come hang out with us after the game, react with us. So we'll be doing a lot of that once conference play gets started. And obviously a lot of off-season KU football stuff as well. So, yeah, we got you covered over there. We're doing a great job, and we're excited for the start of conference play. And, yeah, we'll be pushing through into the spring and hopefully into April for KU basketball as well.
Absolutely. Well, we'll have to have you on to talk some KU football transfer portal as well. But that was Nick Springer from KCSN and the Chiefs Radio Network. Hey, after this, we are going to be doing a little bit more KU Towson breakdown, and we will hear from KU head women's basketball coach Brandon Schneider. He was made available to the media talking about the Haskell game coming up right here on Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com, and ESPN Kansas City.
I'm Kenny Logan Jr., and you're watching KansasNation.com.
Welcome back into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Hey, be sure to like and subscribe everywhere you find us. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Be sure to subscribe and watch our show every weekday from 4 to 6 on KansasNation.com, as well as, like I said, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And follow us on all of our socials, Facebook, Kansas Nation, Twitter, @The Kansas Nation. Same with Instagram and TikTok, @The Kansas Nation, for all of your Jayhawk needs. We've got a bunch of really great shows for you. Haney and the Hawks, Legends of Kansas with B-Mac and Chris Harris, Mick Schaefer and Greg Gurley. Their show is going to be starting around the new year. You're not going to want to miss that. That's going to be a lot of fun. Tyshawn Taylor also has a show with us as well. Going to try to get Tyshawn to hop on with us, hopefully sometime this week, maybe next week, but we'll see. KU women's basketball, they throttled Denver over this past weekend on Sunday. It was an incredible performance by Libby Fandel. Hit a couple of nice threes. Libby Fandel has really come to. That freshman class has been incredible to watch. They're taking on Haskell tomorrow in Allen Fieldhouse. The City Showdown, as I like to call it. I believe they're calling it the 785 something. 785 Community Night is what they're calling it. I'm going to call it the City Showdown because it's a lot of fun. Haskell, obviously, the Haskell Indian Nations College here in Lawrence. First time they're meeting up since 1977, so that's going to be a lot of fun. Coach Brandon was addressing the media yesterday. Let's hear everything Coach Brandon had to say right now.
The matchup with Haskell, you've had a relationship with them for a while. What does it mean that you're getting them in your gym for a game this week?
Yeah, I think, it's a challenging scheduling time with different schools having final exams. But we wanted to not go a full week without a game. And we had talked with Haskell about doing an exhibition and just felt like that this would be a better slot to have it. And I respect Adam a great deal, especially with the character and integrity that he demonstrated, last spring with the circumstances that, he was put in. So, but we have had a partnership with him for several years now, and excited to do this for the community.
You were both busy during that last spring ordeal. Did you have any communication with him, or having a chance to ever talk with him about all of that?
We talked about it, but I think it was more, just respecting, that he didn't leave his team, even though that he wasn't being compensated any longer.
After that, you jump right in, Iowa State on the road. How much do you like the pre-break Big 12 game? How much do you not like it? What do you feel about that?
Well, I think it is what it is. We don't create the schedule. I would like it a lot more if we were going in 100% healthy. I think, I don't know what they're ranked today, but I think they're, top 6 in the country good, from what I've seen. And, we'll definitely, I think, be one of the contenders to win the Big 12 title.
Because of that, how much can you gain from win or lose, just playing a team like that early in the conference schedule, playing well against them if you do all of those things?
Yeah, I think so much of it is, are you willing to go in there and just play free and be aggressive, understand that, there are things that you can try to impact. Obviously, Crooks is leading the nation in scoring, and is not just a problem for us, she's a problem for everybody.
About the difficulty of scheduling this time of year, and also now you got a Big 12 game not too long after this. Like, in a perfect world, how would you have envisioned the schedule playing out?
Well, I think, I'll give you an example. Next year, in this exact situation, we were able to find a Division I opponent. So in a perfect world, you would play 13 or 14 Division I non-conference games. But this was a scenario that, this year we just weren't able to make happen. And Adam and I had talked about, like I said, the exhibition game. We'd already had those filled. So we looked at the opportunity to just kind of plug in the middle of this week.
It's not the way you optimally want to play with this roster, but how did you feel about how the 4-guard lineup went yesterday?
I thought there were some good things, and then there's things that we need this week to clean up, not only in practice, but in the Haskell game. We need to clean some things up. It's time, when players haven't had reps. I thought on the defensive side it was better than the offense. Just didn't play with a lot of rhythm early.
Brandon, when Jalea returns, in the small sample size we've seen, she's had lesser minutes because of foul issues. She's very aggressive, which I'm guessing you like. What's the coaching point on, yes, we want you aggressive, but we want to keep you in the game?
Yeah, I think we talked to all of our players about why you foul. In my opinion, you foul for 3 reasons. You're out of shape, you're out of position, or you're undisciplined. And we feel like you have control of all 3 of those things. And I think she'll be in shape. It's just a matter of being in position and then having the discipline, to wall up late and not it's the fouls below the waist that are problematic for me.
As Kansas head women's basketball coach Brandon Schneider addressing the media yesterday, about to take on Haskell. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like I said, first time since 1977 that the 2 Lawrence colleges are going to be going head-to-head. As I mentioned before, Kansas throttled Denver in Allen Fieldhouse on Sunday, 77-38. Samaya Nichols had 20 points. She passed the 20-point mark for the 7th time in 11 games this season. Or excuse me, she didn't have 20. She had 21 points. She passed the 20-point mark for the 7th time in in 11 games this season. Just 9 field goal attempts. She was 6 for 9 from the field, 7 for 8 from the free throw line. Libby Fandel, as I had mentioned, she had an absolutely career night. 17 points for Libby, 6 for 12 from the field, 4 for 7 from the 3-point line, 3 rebounds and 3 steals. Incredible stuff by Libby Fandel. And Tatiana Brown actually got a lot of play in this one too. She scored 8 points, pulled down 8 rebounds in this one. So really exciting to see that from a young big like Tatiana Brown. She's gotten some play here and there for the Hawks, but really the majority of the minutes have been have been from Libby Fandel, or excuse me, the Lily Meister and Reagan Williams. Reagan Williams has done an excellent job of stepping in for an injured Jalea Davis. Jalea, they're still working on some stuff, right? She has an injured foot. Hopefully she will be good to go for conference play. That's coming up, right? They're going to be playing Iowa State sooner than we know it. And, Audie Crooks leading the nation in points right now. She has just been a monster down low. So getting Jalea back for that game is going to be incredibly important just for the help defense with the Lily Meister. Reagan Williams does an excellent job, like I said, of coming in and being a fantastic depth piece and having that kind of rotation down low, because Reagan is able to play that 5 spot. Lily Meister, they're the same height, Reagan and Lily, but Lily's just a little bit lengthier and a little bit better of a rebounder than Reagan Williams is. And Jalea Davis, as we know, is just an absolute freak athlete. She's probably going to be playing in the WNBA someday. That's how good she is. 5-star All-American, McDonald's All-American. She's going to have a long, illustrious career here at the University of Kansas, and really excited about Jalea. But unfortunately, she's just not healthy as of right now, so still kind of working some things out. Hopefully we get her back for the Iowa State game, but it's going to be a lot of fun playing against Haskell. And as we all know, the Haskell coach had a fantastic story. He stuck around with Haskell after losing his job. They cut funding, they took away his salary, and he stayed with the team, not compensated, because he loves that team so much. So hats off to him for doing that, for sticking with this team, not compensated, and he's still there, man, still kicking, and it's going to be a lot of fun. The turnout should be really good. I'll be there on Wednesday doing some live coverage for Kansas Nation as well, so that'll be a lot of fun. Going to continue with some KU Towson talk after this. Going to just continue to break down some of the numbers that we've seen from Kansas, kind of on the defensive side of the ball, what we should expect from Towson, maybe do a little bit some keys to the game as well right after this on Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com, and ESPN Kansas City. Welcome back into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Daniel Courtwright here. Sean Kellerman is not with us. Big shout out to Nick Springer, by the way, for hopping on the show, helping us out, doing a little Chiefs talk, as the Chiefs have been eliminated from the playoffs, and Patrick Mahomes' ACL and LCL have been torn. But thankfully, we figured out this morning that he underwent surgery down in Dallas, and the surgery was successful. So hopefully he will be good to go. I want to do a little bit more KU Towson talk. Just want to talk a little bit about kind of where this team is as of right now and what we need to kind of improve on. And I talked a lot about it, and Springer came on and talked a lot about it as well, is the fact that the offense just looks stale right now, right? That was overshadowed by the Melvin Council Jr. legacy game, as we all like to mention it. But Springer brought up a good point. Kansas only had 2 bench points that entire game. Kansas is supposed to have these depth pieces that are supposed to be impact players whenever the starters need to come out of the game, right? You had Colorario come in, 7 minutes, he had 2 points. And I feel like he's kind of been floating around there right now. As we know, Colorario started off the year as a starter. He was out there on the court and just wasn't able to kind of get his feet under it. And this is something, and Sean likes to give me crap because he likes to be a little hyperbolic and say that I'm a Colorario hater. I'm not a Colorario hater. I actually love Colorario, and I love the spark of energy that he brings Kansas whenever he is out there on the court. You can see the raw potential in a guy like Colorario, where you can see that he can jump out of the gym, he can hit threes, he busts his butt whenever there's a loose ball or a rebound or anything like that. But the game is just a little too fast for him, right? You can see it on the defensive end of the ball where, in terms of back cuts with his man, help defense, just ISO defense, whatever it may be. He's just not quite there yet because he's 18 years old. He's supposed to be a senior in high school right now. He's not supposed to be playing against high-level college basketball players yet. Now, he's playing in the AAU ranks, and a lot of those guys will be, playing high-level basketball. But he's not supposed to be here. He's supposed to be in high school. He reclassed, and the game is just a little too fast for him. So I think that Kansas can utilize these next 2 games with Towson and Davidson to kind of give Cole Rosario a little bit more run, right? I think you might even see him going for 14. I can see him sitting around 14 to 16 minutes as of right now, just trying to get his feet under him against, lower level opponents. Not that Towson is bad, but they're not UConn. They're not UNC. They're not NC State. They're not Duke, right? It's Towson. Towson has really good players, and I think it'll also present a challenge for Cole Rosario because they do have good players, right? We talked about Tyler Tejada. We talked about Dylan Williamson, right? They have some really good guards who can shoot the ball at a relatively high clip. So I think this is going to be an interesting stretch of games for Kansas. I'm really anxious to see kind of how he is able to adjust against some of these mid-majors and hopefully kind of bring his way back into gaining some more playing time, because you hate to see a guy like Cole Rosario with so much talent just not being utilized because of the fact that the game is too fast for him and he just doesn't have the fundamentals to be able to keep up with a lot of these high-level college players that we are seeing Kansas go up against. So that's going to be my number one thing, is that with Cole Rosario, I want to see him get more confidence, more experience under his belt, try to catch up to the speed of the game that he's been playing with. Also, on the flip side of it, as of right now, we do not know if Darren Peterson will be playing or not. He's day-to-day. He's going to go through shoot-around today. He did practice on Monday. I would anticipate to see him. All indications are this is a new thing. It's a quad cramping issue. Now, if this continues throughout today, throughout shoot-around, that could potentially be an issue. But I'm anxious to see how Darren Peterson is going to be able to adapt and adjust with this new issue that has come about with the quad cramping, right? I mean, you look at the 4 games that he's played in regulation or in the non-con this year, excluding the Louisville game, which he was great in the Louisville game, by the way. Against Green Bay, he went 7 for 11 from the field for 21 points, 3 for 7 from the three-point line. Against UNC, he went 8 for 14. That's 57% from the field, 3 for 5 from the three-point line with 22 points. That's his highest scoring game of the year, was against North Carolina in that 87-74 loss. He played 28 minutes in that one, had to get out early. He was about to go on a run, which is just so unfortunate to see, is that's yet another game where you don't have your best player, presumably the number 1 overall draft pick in the NBA draft, out there at the end of the game, and we saw it. Kansas was able to bring it back against North Carolina a few times, and UNC just kind of separated themselves, but you felt good coming out of that game in that loss. Against Mizzou, he went 6 for 14, 3 for 9 from the three-point line with 17 points. He had a relatively good game against Mizzou in an 80-60 victory. Didn't really need him a whole heck of a lot in that game. Kansas kind of had control of that one. And then on Saturday against NC State, he wound up playing 31 minutes, which was his season high, right? Even with him exiting the game early, and you didn't have him for that key stretch, down the stretch, which, again, I was kind of headlined by Melvin Council hitting some big threes in some big moments, especially towards the end of regulation and into overtime as well. But against NC State, he went 7 for 14 from the field, 40% from the three-point line. He was 2 for 5 for 17 points once again. So we've seen what he can do. I would anticipate him playing today against Towson, but if this quad issue remains to be something to keep an eye on, I would not expect him to play against Davidson, because I have been consistent about this. He needs to get healthy for Big 12 play. Kansas kicks it off against UCF And this is going to be key for him to get healthy for this UCF game, right? You have Davidson. Davidson is an okay team, a storied program, right? Obviously, you see Steph Curry and some other players who have come out of Davidson. But in terms of, wanting to see Darren Peterson out there, if he doesn't get this quad issue fixed against Towson, if he's not able to play upwards of 25 minutes against Towson, if he has to come out and use the Theragun once again, I say take him out for the Davidson game. Sit him for the Davidson game, get him healthy. But Springer was on earlier. He said that rest isn't necessarily something that helps with cramps, right? It's hydration. It's working out those muscles consistently. So we'll see him practicing, but at the same time, you don't want him to have some kind of re-aggravation or a more of an aggravation on that quad or the hamstring issue against a Davidson team, right? You need to get him healthy for Big 12 play, and that has been going to be the biggest, the absolute biggest thing for this Kansas program. One more player I wanted to talk about was Bryson Tiller. Bryson Tiller started off hot, right? And we kept on saying, oh, man, we totally forgot we had this guy. And that was because he came at semester last year. Didn't play in the McDonald's All-American game. He was a McDonald's All-American. People forget that because he was at Kansas when that game was going on. He was in a boot and didn't play and redshirted for the last semester of play for the University of Kansas. So a lot of people just forgot that we had Bryson Tiller, but people forget that he's a top 20 player in that class. He came out and had an excellent start to the year, right? And we saw Flory Bidunga struggling, and Bryson Tiller was able to pick up some pieces where Flory Bidunga was kind of lacking early on in this season. Now it's kind of flipped. Well, we are seeing Flory Bidunga play Flory Bidunga style basketball, right? He had eight points, 11 rebounds against NC State, which is a good stat line. You want to see him get over double digits in every single game that he's able to play. But again, on the defensive side of the ball, Flory has such a fantastic upside. But in terms of Bryson went out there, and this is the nicest way I can put it, he kind of stunk it up, right, against NC State. He had 2 points, 4 rebounds. If you're a 6'10 power forward, you cannot do that. You cannot have a 2-point, 4-rebound game where you're playing upwards of 8. I believe he had 28 minutes in this game, right? So he was a complete non-factor. On the defensive end of the ball, he did some good things that I liked to see. But if you're 6'10", you're playing the power forward position, and you exit that game with 4 rebounds and 2 points, it's unacceptable. So this is a game that's going to kind of be a palate cleanse for Bryson Tiller, right? They have one of their big guys who plays the power forward position who's 6'6". So there's going to be a gigantic mismatch between him. Is Jack Doumbia Jr., 6'6", like I said. Bryson Tiller, he's listed at 6'10". He's a legit 6'10". The kid is a monster. He's the same size as Flory, at least up close. You look at him, you go, there's literally no difference. But except for Bryson can put the ball on the ground and he can shoot it, and he has better handles. So that's going to be a fun kind of mismatch to see Bryson kind of get his confidence back. We saw him hit some threes early, and then over this last stretch of games, I believe he hasn't hit a 3 in a month, which that's not what you want to see. You want to see Bryson be able to hit some threes, hit some shots from the outside. We kept on talking about whenever Bryson was playing well was, man, I forgot what it's like to have a power forward be able to shoot a shot outside of 10 feet away from the basket. And Bryson is that guy, but he just hasn't been able to do it over the last month, which is very unfortunate. So I want to see Bryson really kind of have this palate cleanse and gain his confidence back. And Jack Doumbia, by the way, is still a really good player, right? He averages 12.1 points per game, averaged 11 points per game last year with Wright State. Kid's a good player. He's a baller. He can shoot. He can rebound. But Bryson has a size advantage that I think is going to be unmatched. And I think Bryson is going to have the biggest mismatch of the game. So we'll certainly see how this plays out. And one more thing, Trey White, I would imagine, is going to be guarding Tyler Tejada, who, again, was the CAA Player of the Year last year, co-Player of the Year. That's going to be an interesting matchup. There's going to be a lot of help defense on him if he's able to drive on Trey White. Bryson Tiller is going to have to be that guy with that help defense. And Flory is the main rim protector, but Bryson can also do it. So we'll certainly see how this kind of all shakes out. But at the same time, look, Kansas is going to need to be able to focus in this game and take out a lot of momentum from this game. Because with the NC State game, you look at Melvin Council, 36 points, 9 for 15. None of the other guys had good games whatsoever. You had some big rebounds towards the end of the game. From Bryson had one big rebound towards the end of the game, which was clutch. But that was only one of 4. He needs to have more rebounds. Flory needs to play better. A lot of these guys need to take this as a palate cleanse, a little bit of a deep breath, but you can't look over this Towson program because this Towson program is one of the better mid-major programs that we've seen, especially Kansas, for this entire non-conference. So that was a little bit more of a breakdown with KU Towson. I'll give you some keys to the game later in the show. But after this, I'm going to be talking KU football and some transfer portal news. After this on Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com, and ESPN Kansas City. Welcome back into Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Kansas taking on Towson tonight at 8 o'clock. You can hear pregame coverage of that starting at 6:30 with the Crimson and Blue Show. And you can hear me, Daniel Courtwright, on Rock Chalk Sports starting at 6 o'clock over on Sports Radio 810 WHB, previewing the KU Towson game. But I'm going to talk a little KU football as of right now. As KU football, it's over. But the news cycle never ends, so it seems. The transfer portal doesn't open until January 2nd, but Kansas has already had a number of different players who have, come out with intentions to enter the transfer portal. It's a little bit of a tricky kind of gray area right now because you already have guys who are committing, which is absolutely insane, right? I think there's a guy from Oklahoma State who has intended to enter the transfer portal and has already committed to USC, even though that they're technically not supposed to be in contact with anybody. So all of it's a mess, but we haven't heard that as of right now for any of the Kansas players. I will kind of break down. I did a little bit of a breakdown yesterday in terms of who Kansas is losing in the transfer portal. Some names that you would recognize, other names that weren't necessarily impact players, but guys who I thought had some really good ceilings. I'll start off with Efren Jasso. He was a preferred walk-on. He's a punter. That's relatively big just because of the fact that Kansas, as of right now, doesn't really have a punter who has any experience whatsoever, because Finn Lappin was our guy, and he was a senior, obviously transferred over from McNeese State. He will be graduating. Efren Jasso will be leaving, so Kansas really needs to bolster up their special teams. And Coach Taiwo Onatolu has done a reasonably good job on the special teams front. Kansas' special teams drastically improved over the last 2 seasons this year compared to the last 2 years. So that's something important to kind of look at is, you had Money Marjan, who was absolutely perfect through the first few games of the year, wound up missing a few, one pretty big one against Arizona, but as opposed to that, you look at his season as a whole, and he had an absolutely fantastic season. Laith Marjan will also be graduating as well. So Kansas is really going to have to either go to the portal or potentially use Dane Effred, who is right now, he is one of the guys who is still in that kicking room for Kansas. Dane Effred is probably going to be the number one guy, but I would imagine Kansas is going to go to the portal to try to find another kicker. So we'll certainly see kind of where the special teams kind of lands. Speaking of special teams, a couple of more guys that you'd probably know from their special teams time at Kansas. Bryce Cahoon, who is a wide receiver who came out of Mays. He played with Avery Johnson in high school, was his number one target, went to Syracuse. His first year transferred back over to Kansas. I thought that he had a relatively high ceiling. I really liked kind of what we saw preseason from him. Really good route runner, really fast kid, but never really got a chance except for in the Wagner game for Kansas. I think he might have had one catch in that Wagner game. He's going to be entering the transfer portal as well, so we'll certainly see. We'll see kind of where Bryce Cahoon lands. Hopefully he has an illustrious career wherever he goes. Just kind of missed his opportunity because Kansas had a lot of really solid wide receivers this year, right? You had Cam Pickett, who's going to be returning next year, presumably. You also have Emmanuel Henderson Jr., who is graduating. Levi Wentz, graduating. Bryson Canty, graduating. So there's a lot of holes to be filled in this wide receiver room. I'll kind of break that down a little bit more in terms of what Kansas is going to need in the transfer portal. But Bryce Cahoon had a really good shot of getting on the field this year for the University of Kansas, and now he's going to be entering the transfer portal. So unfortunate to see. Get some other players like Johnny Thompson Jr., that just takes away in that running back room. We talked a lot about Johnny Thompson Jr. and Harry Stewart, as those are the two kind of heir apparents to the Le'Shawn Williams, Daniel Highshaw 1-2 punch that we liked to see so much. And you know, we saw Johnny Thompson Jr. a little bit, especially early on in this year, especially in the Wagner game, right? I'm going to bring up this Wagner game because this is where we saw a lot of these players really be able to get some meaningful playing time, was towards the end of that Wagner game. Johnny Thompson Jr. was an electric running back, and now he's going to be gone, but I feel okay about it. Now, granted, you don't have anybody with real experience, right? Harry Stewart got in on a few snaps sort of in the middle of the season, towards the end of the season, on some specialty packages and that kind of thing. I think Harry Stewart kind of emerged as that number one guy who was in that second tier behind Daniel Highshaw and Le'Shawn Williams. Johnny Thompson was kind of left back. And then we've seen a guy like Justin Thurman who came in against Fresno, or no, I guess it was also against Wagner. Had two unbelievable runs. One of them was called back. I think Justin Thurman is going to be the guy. This is my blindfold throwing the dart at the dartboard, and hopefully it hits a bullseye. Justin Thurman's the real deal, and he's going to be a name that everybody is going to know next December. I think that he's going to be the guy. That doesn't mean Kansas isn't going to go to the portal to try to get another running back, right? I think that's going to be one of their main things that they're going to be looking for, is another running back to fill those shoes in terms of just experience. But in terms of raw ability, in terms of leg power, in terms of running people over, Justin Thurman is going to be that guy. Does he need a little bit more time to develop? Probably. But I think Justin Thurman has the potential to be Kansas's number one running back next year, and then you build around him in that running back room. You still have Harry Stewart, who has some playing time. You still have some other guys, but Kansas needs a guy in the portal as well. And like I said, the two biggest names that we've seen enter the transfer portal are Lyric Rawls and John Kamara. Kansas, from yesterday when I did do a transfer portal breakdown, Kansas had two other guys enter the portal. Jameel Croft Jr., who you will probably remember from last year in the K-State game, had a gigantic special teams blunder where he went out of bounds and he was on kick return, and instead of catching the ball while he was out of bounds, he caught the ball and then ran out of bounds at the 2-yard line, leading to a Kansas State safety and essentially losing that game for Kansas, right? You don't want to say that he lost that game for Kansas because there was a number of different things that Kansas could have done. You know, you think about the Rich Miller, or no, excuse me, that was a couple years ago. But there was just a lot of things in that game that definitely went wrong. But that led to the safety that wound up, essentially sealing it for Kansas. So that's what Jameel Croft Jr. is most known for. But he was a really good piece in that secondary, added to the depth, and he's going to be gone. And then Logan Brantley, who's a guy that we talked a lot about in the offseason, about a guy who has this raw athleticism, but just a little bit undisciplined in the linebacker room, who had a lot of potential, and I think just didn't necessarily live up to it. He played a lot of snaps this year. And we saw him a lot on the special teams unit. We saw him a lot out there when Kansas's linebacker room was dealing with a lot of injuries, and just not the most disciplined of players, but raw athleticism. And I think if Noah Simpson would have been able to get his hands on him more and mold him, I think this would have been a breakout year for Logan Brantley. So now he is in the transfer portal. Looking at what Kansas is really going to need coming out of the transfer portal, I mentioned it previously. It's boosting their special teams, right? Kicker, punter. You're probably going to need a long snapper too. Those three are huge. Kansas needs to get some guys out of the transfer portal because I don't know what their confidence level is in the guys that we have right now. Dane Efford is okay, right? Don't really have a punter right now with Efren Jasso leaving. Probably going to need a long snapper, like I said. So you're going to need to bolster up your special teams units. That's probably number one. People don't like to talk about special teams. They think it's boring. They think, oh, whatever. Special teams is arguably just as important as both offense and defense. You look at the K-State game last year with Jameel Croft. He had the blunder where he ran out of bounds at the 2-yard line. That led to a safety, and that essentially lost the game for Kansas against Kansas State 2 years ago. You look at the Arizona game for this year with Laith Marjan missing a chip shot field goal from 30 yards. That essentially lost Kansas the game. Now, granted, Kansas still should have gotten a stop in that last 2 minutes of the game where Arizona State went down and scored a touchdown, but Kansas still needed that kick. Special teams is huge. So that's going to be number one for Kansas to look for in the transfer portal. Number two, probably as important, is you need a good wide receiver core. You are bringing back some pieces, right? Keaton Kubeka, who we saw make some catches in the flats, right? He's good at finding those soft spots in those zones, I think. I think straight line speed in terms of burners and beating guys and being able to stack the corner on go routes, I don't think is his strong suit, but he is good at finding those soft spots whenever they are in zone coverage and also beating his man in the short field, right? Hot routes, 5 and outs. You see Keaton Kubeka doing things like that, he's going to be a good kind of easy reception guy, what we had talked about Cam Pickett was going to be this year. I like Keaton Kubeka. I like his upside, and I like the fact that he's getting a lot more experience for Kansas at that wide receiver position. So that's going to be important to note. Cam Pickett also has another year, so he's going to be back, but you're losing Emmanuel Henderson. You're losing Levi Wentz. You're losing Bryson Canty. You're losing Doug Emelian. You're losing a lot of guys. So whoever the quarterback is going to be next year, you have to get the guys in that semester, and you have to develop that chemistry early. And there are going to be a number of different talented wide receivers, and I mean that's probably going to be the pitch, right? The pitch is going to be, hey, you're not playing as much as you probably wanted to at Auburn or Mississippi State or Oregon or wherever, right? I'm looking at the big schools. I'm looking at Power 4 guys who are probably the 4th, 5th wide receiver and saying, hey, come to Kansas. You're almost guaranteed to be the number one. That was the pitch with Emmanuel Henderson, and look at how that worked out. Right, Emmanuel Henderson wasn't getting the playing time that he wanted at Alabama. He comes to Kansas. All of a sudden, he's a burner. He's the guy that guys are throwing double teams on. He's the guy who Jalen Daniels is looking for down the field most of the time. He went on a stretch where he had some trouble with some coverages, and that's because teams were scheming specifically for Emmanuel Henderson. But he started off with an incredible start to the season and ended really well as well. So I'm going to be looking at Emmanuel Henderson type players, guys who are burners, guys with straight line speed who can stack their men, who aren't potentially getting the playing time that they wanted at. We're looking at top 25, top 15 teams, right? That's where we got Emmanuel Henderson was from Alabama. So that's going to be number number two after special teams. And then number three, you got to look at the defensive tackle room, right? You're losing a lot of guys. You're losing Keenan Caldwell, Tommy Dunn, DJ Withers, and even just the front line in general, right? You still got Dak Brinkley, who's going to be coming back on the defensive end of the ball, on the defensive end. You got guys like Blake Harrell who are coming back, right? Marcus Calvin really came to, and I thought had a pretty good, I wouldn't say coming out party, but good experience, and I liked the snaps that he was in. But you still need other guys to bolster and get some depth pieces on the defensive line. So those are my top three things that Kansas needs to look for. Is number one, special teams. Absolutely special teams. Kicker, punter, long snapper. Number two, wide receiver. You need guys who are burners. Kansas does not have an absolute burner right now like we did with Emmanuel Henderson, like we did with Quentin Skinner a couple years ago. Kansas needs a guy with straight line speed who can stack his man. And then number three is the defensive line. Kansas needs some weight, need some muscle up there. And Kansas honestly should take a page out of Texas Tech's book, right? Texas Tech, they threw a ridiculous amount of money at their defensive line. And look at how it's worked out for them. They're number 4 right now in the CFP. They have a team that I believe can win it all. So it's going to be tricky, man. It's with the new rules put in place where there's no spring portal window, Kansas has to get the job done early. They have to make those pitches, and they have to continue to pitch on what's being built. Don't look at the last couple of seasons and say, yeah, well, they went 5-7. High expectations, didn't meet them. Kansas is still building. And it's a great opportunity to be a part of a Power 4 program who was completely irrelevant for 15-plus years and see what they're building, see how they're growing, and check it out and say, look, I want to be a part of something that I don't want to go to a team that's already established and then have to fight for my playing time. I want to go to a program who nobody is betting on, and we're building, and you're essentially going to be that guy who's on whatever position that you're at on the ball, and you're going to be looked at as a part of one of the biggest rebuilds in college football history. So we'll talk more transfer portal, obviously, when it opens January 2nd. But as of right now, update from yesterday, Jameel Croft Jr. and Logan Brantley both entered the transfer portal on the defensive side of the ball. So it sucks. Obviously, losing guys. Kansas has done a good job of avoiding some of that over years past because guys are buying in, which is a really good thing to see. And Kansas loses guys every year, right? But you're not losing some of the more important guys. So you still see that buy-in from guys on this Kansas squad who still want to continue this rebuild and continue to make Kansas relevant once again in college football. Hey, after this, going to give you some keys to the game for KU Towson going on tonight at 8 o'clock right here on Rock Chalk Sports, KansasNation.com, and ESPN Kansas City. Welcome back to Rock Chalk Sports here on KansasNation.com and ESPN Kansas City. Daniel Courtwright here. Just want to give a quick shout out to Crown Automotive, Miles Schneider and Crown Automotive here in Lawrence, a great partner with us, the best car dealership in town. They will treat you right. Everybody, all their staff is super friendly, and they will make sure that you get home in the right car. A whole line of new cars, Toyotas, Volkswagens. They have a whole line of used cars as well. So whatever you need, Crown Automotive will get you covered. Also, shout out to Game Day Men's Health. Guys, I know it's tough, right? Having to admit that maybe something's wrong, and you put it off toward the last second. I've done it. We've all done it, right? But you got to go get yourself checked out. So go to Game Day Men's Health. They have a plush man cave-like setting. Everyone there is incredibly nice. They take away that white coat phobia, right? Everyone's afraid to go to the doctor. Not at Game Day Men's Health. They really do a great job at making you feel comfortable. And look, as much as you don't want to admit it, your health is very important, and you got to get yourself checked out every once in a while. You know what I mean? So please go check out Game Day Men's Health here in Lawrence. Shout out to Mitch Bales, Sam Abrams, and everybody, all of our good friends over at Game Day Men's Health. Also want to do a quick plug for us. Be sure to like and subscribe everywhere you find us: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Watch all of our shows. We are live every day from 4 to 6 on KansasNation.com. So be sure to check out KansasNation.com. Watch us on YouTube. Listen to us on Apple and Spotify. But watch us on KansasNation.com. It is appointment television, I guess. I was gonna say appointment radio. We are on the radio, but it's a live. We're video and we're talking. So check out KansasNation.com, because not only can you watch us live, but also we have a ton of different articles and a ton of different videos on there as well from all of our different platforms. Sean does a great job at writing these articles. I just wrote my first article, by the way. I did a little Kansas football transfer portal update as well, so be sure to check that out. KansasNation.com. Let's talk a little bit more KU Towson. Going to give you some keys to the game. Again, kind of want to roll through what Towson does good, what they do not so good. They like to shoot a three. They're sort of a live and die by the three type of program, right? You got Dylan Williamson, who is their sharpshooter three-point guy. He had 88 threes last year. That's third most by any Towson Tiger in a season in school history. The kid is shooting 34.2% from the three-point line right now, but last year he shot 43%. So I believe that's second all-time in a season for any Towson Tiger. So he's capable of doing it, and it's just a matter of time before he starts to get really, really hot. Kansas has done an excellent job at guarding the perimeter, right? Like I said, they're fifth right now in opponent three-point percentage. They're shooting 25% against Kansas. All opponents are. Kansas has not allowed a team to shoot over 30%, which is one of the more impressive stats that I've seen in a long time. This is the best perimeter defense that I've seen out of a Kansas team in probably my lifetime, right? They do an excellent job at getting hands in the face, going off of switches, ball screens, different kind of things. They do not allow you to get open. They like to suffocate you and guard that perimeter heavy. And that's what Towson does well, is they shoot threes. I just talked about Dylan Williamson, but Tyler Tejada, he's 6'9". He plays a guard spot. He's a big guard. This is going to be a giant mismatch for whoever's guarding him. Presumably, it's going to be Trey White. Trey White is good on the defensive end of the ball, but just in terms of height difference, it's going to be a big-time mismatch, right? So you have to get your hands in the face, have to be able to, contest those shots, because Trey White, I believe he's 6'5", 6'6", somewhere around there. Tyler Tejada, 6'9", plays that guard spot, has a high release. So you have to smother him and not allow him to get those open looks, because he can hit them. He is shooting relatively well from the clip. He's 27.5% from the three-point line, but he is known to make them, and he's known to make big shots whenever he is able to. Also on the defensive end of the ball, he's really good at getting in those passing lanes, and obviously on the defensive side, he can guard probably 1 through 5 because he's 6'9", right? He could have a pretty good matchup against Flory Bidunga if he wanted to, and he can have a good matchup against Darren Peterson if he wanted to. So the kid's like sort of a five-tool player, as they like to say in baseball, and move it over to basketball. Sort of a five-tool guy, right? He's the head of the snake. He's the guy that Kansas needs to be worried about. So in terms of some keys to the game for Kansas, if Darren Peterson plays, and I hate to preface it like that because, in theory, the keys shouldn't change. But since Darren Peterson changes the way that Kansas plays whenever he's on the court as opposed to when he's not on the court, I will give a key to the game for when Darren Peterson plays, if he does play. Because as of right now, we're not entirely sure if Darren Peterson is going to be good to go for this Towson game. So when he's out there on the court, I want to see more ball movement, right? Bill Self has talked about this. He said he wants the offense to play faster, and he wants guys to find out their roles. Are you a ball mover? Are you a big man down low who tries to get those offensive rebounds? Are you a shooter, right? We saw the defense get a little stagnant out there, and that's why Melvin Council, they were daring him to shoot. That's why he put up 15 threes. That's why he made 9 of them, right? But when the ball was in the hands of the other players, it was a little bit of a stale, kind of stagnant offense that you might see in an October game when you're watching the Charlotte Hornets play against the Memphis Grizzlies. You know what I mean? So you need more ball movement. Off-ball movement is what I want to be looking for, because this Towson program, they're going to be doing a good job in terms of surrounding the outside and limiting the perimeter shots, because obviously they're going to be making their defensive game plan around Darren Peterson and probably Melvin Council Jr. So I want to see more ball movement, and then when Darren Peterson is not out there on the court, I want to see more post touches by Flory Bidunga than any game that we've seen ever. There's going to be a mismatch down low with Flory Bidunga. He's going up against a 6'9" guy, only plays 18 minutes a game. He averages 5.9 rebounds per game. But still, looking at the mismatch, looking at the way Flory is able to match up against a lot of these power 4 bigs, I think this is going to be a gigantic matchup, and I think it's going to be a gigantic mismatch, not only with Flory, but also with Bryson, right? Bryson's going to be guarded by a guy who's 6'6". Bryson's 6'10". So that's going to be a huge mismatch. I want to see this be a down-low game. I want to see post moves left and right. I don't want to see a lot of three-pointer shot by Kansas. I want to see post touches, post feeds. Towson's going to try to limit that, but Kansas is going to have to get it done, right? They've got it done in the past. That's going to be the biggest key to the game for me if Darren Peterson is not out there on the court. On the defensive side of the ball, relatively simple. Stop Tyler Tejada and do what you do best, right? That's a given. Kansas has done an excellent job at guarding the perimeter. They haven't allowed. Like I said, we say it all the time, and it doesn't take any of the shock factor away. The fact that Kansas has not allowed a team to shoot over 30%. They're the 5th best team in the nation at three-point percentage on defense. So do what you do best. Guard the perimeter. Lock these guys up. Suffocate them. Don't let them get these open shots. Put hands in their faces, right? That's going to be number one. But number two, Tyler Tejada is not only a three-point shooter, he's 6'9". He can put the ball on the ground, and he can get to the rim. So help defense is going to be big. I want to see Bryson coming off of his man to be able to help out on Tyler Tejada, because we're going to see him driving those gaps, driving those lanes, and honestly, it is a little bit of a mismatch with Trey White. I have faith that Trey White is going to be able to do it, but he's going to need help because Tyler Tejada is that good. Like I said, reigning CAA player of the year in the conference. The kid's good. 18.8 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game. The kid's down low, too. He crashes the boards. I need to see blockouts on the defensive side of the ball. But you have to stop Tyler Tejada. Like I said, absolute head of the snake. So it should be a fun one, right? You can listen to pregame coverage on Sports Radio 810 WHB starting at 6:30. Starting at 6 o'clock, I will be on Sports Radio 810 WHB giving a whole Towson breakdown in terms of what we should be seeing tonight. But again, coming off of this game, Melvin Council has a lot to be happy about. Nobody else really has a lot to be happy about. There's not a lot of momentum coming into this game except for just getting a win in a tough road environment at NC State. But in terms of actual impact on the court, not a lot of guys have done a very good job of it. So that'll wrap it up here for Rock Chalk Sports. Kansas, like I said, takes on Towson tonight at 8 o'clock. Stay tuned to kansasnation.com as well as all of our socials to stay up to date on the game. I'll be live tweeting the game and posting a bunch of stuff during the game as well. For Elijah Schmidt, running the operations, and Gabe Boucher here at the Kansas Nation Studios, I've been Daniel Courtwright. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow breaking down what I saw in this Kansas-Towson game. Thanks so much for watching on kansasnation.com and listening on ESPN Kansas City.